it's Lindsay and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my beta reader process. Now I know that some of you guys are getting ready to send off your books to betas for the first time. That's so exciting and so nerve-wracking. I'm totally there with you. I went through it once and it all turned out okay, and I'm here to give you some tips and tricks. That's a whole other kind of channel. Okay, I am giving you some tips and tricks about beta reading to help you guys along the way. Let's move on. So really quickly, just some preliminary information. A beta reader is a group of readers that you give your books to after you've done rounds of revisions, and they can be writers or non-writers, it doesn't really matter. And what they do is they give you just generalized feedback about your book. These aren't going to be like your CPs or your alpha readers that are going to give you like specialized descriptions of what needs to be fixed with pertaining to character arcs or plot developments and things like that. This is just going to be overall general, ooh, I really liked your book, ooh, I really hated that character type things. I also get a lot of questions on where to find beta readers. I found most of mine on Twitter actually. The easiest way to find beta readers is just by making friends, talking to people on Twitter, commenting on their posts, even YouTubers like comment on their videos. There's a really great hashtag on Twitter called CP Matchup. I think they do matching ups once a month, and you could just pitch your book. You usually put up an aesthetic, but you don't have to. And then if you see somebody's book you like, you can just kind of DM them and you switch from there. I also found a couple critique partners on the Write On Con forums, which is an online conference that happens I think in the winter time, but they have the forums open all year and you can find beta readers and critique partners on there. Facebook writing groups are also another place. A Facebook writing group is actually where I found my first critique partner. So you can find betas anywhere. You just have to kind of put in the effort to look. As for my personal beta reading process, I normally do not send my books to betas until I'm at around draft 6. And I know that's kind of late for some people send it out earlier, and that's totally fine. Everyone's process and thinking about the situation is totally different and both are valid. I like my betas to get a book that to me is as close to perfect as I can get it. That way the feedback I get from them would be like the feedback that you would see if someone just picked my book up at Barnes & Noble's and left a Goodreads review. For a little bit of reference of how my drafts work, drafts 1 and 2 are personal drafts. Nobody sees those. Nobody wants to see them, trust me. Draft 3 is what I send to my critique partners. Draft 4 is where I incorporate the critique partners' feedback. Draft 5 is after that where I do an in-depth line edit, and then draft 6 is what I end up sending to betas. Now once you found your betas and you're kind of chatting with them, you kind of become friends with them, you want to be comfortable because there's going to be some back and forth, there's going to be emails, there's going to be comments, things like that. So kind of get to know them a little bit, like, you know, be friendly, send some smiley faces, some gifts, whatever. And once they've agreed and you kind of got to know them just like a little bit, then I add them to my Google Docs sheets. I've recently started using Google Sheets to organize almost everything in my life because it's so much easier. My friend and critique partner Jessica Froberg actually did an entire video on how to make beta reader questionnaires and to organize your beta reader feedback through Google Docs, and it's an amazing video. I will link it down below. You should definitely check it out because that is how I organize this entire process. Now on to actually sending the betas your story. What worked really well for me was that I split my books into 3 parts, or the actual acts of the book. So Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Along with each act, I sent a questionnaire for them to fill out at the end. I really like using this method because I am able to tailor specific questions to the important parts that happen in this act. So for example, if I want to make sure that my character is changing and that people are noticing her change, I could send them a question in Act 2 that's asking, hey, are you noticing the change? What do you think about this character arc? Or if you have a question about a specific plot beat, that's when you can ask the question about that. So before I read you the questions, because I am going to read you the questions that I do ask my betas, because I think that having specific examples of questions is really helpful. I've done a ton of research from like 12 or 13 different resources, and I've picked my favorite questions. So you guys now don't have to use the research. You can just use my format. But a quick little tip I want to get into before I read that is that even if you tailor these questions or if you don't use them yourself, the most important thing to do here is to not ask yes or no questions. Yes or no questions are really not helpful. You want to know why a person feels a certain way about your book. Asking if they like a character and they say yes or they say no isn't helpful because you don't know what aspects of that character's features that they like. My favorite things to do is asking a question, and if it is a yes or no question, I ask why at the end. So that way I can get a full short answer or long answer to all of my questions. Okay, so I've got up my computer and I'm gonna actually read to you guys some of the questions that I asked. For Act 1, which for me ended up being chapters 1 through 4, the questions are, were you able to orient yourself into the story rather quickly with minimal confusion? If not, why? Did the story capture your attention from the very beginning? Why? What are your general thoughts on the protagonist, Miera? What did you dislike about her? Did you find Miera relatable? Why or why not? Did you find Miera realistic? Why or why not? Were the character relationships believable? If not, why? Is there a particular character you enjoyed that you would like to see more of in later chapters? Why? Lots of whys! Does the dialogue seem realistic and flow naturally? Did you always know who is speaking and when? Do you think the story flowed smoothly from scene to scene? If not, why? Were you confused at any time during the chapters? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy the chapters, 10 being the most enjoyable? On a scale of 1 to 10, how eager are you to read the next chapters, 10 being the most eager? Do you have any predictions about the plot or characters? Does any part of the story drag? Are there any parts you wanted to skip over? What are your general thoughts on the world so far? Are there any world-related things you think are well done or anything you think needs further fleshed out? Those are examples of the questions that I asked in the first act. If you kind of notice, I split them up between questions about the immediate beginning, about the character, and then I went into the world and the plot, and then I kind of went into the mechanics of things, and then I went into personalized likes, dislikes about the chapter. Moving into the questions for part 2, these are a little bit different because now we are in the meat of the book. The reader, for the most part, has already made it halfway through the story, so they really should have a good grasp on the world at this point and the main character, what she wants, what she's aiming for, and how she's going to get it. So to make sure that you're hitting all of those points well, tailor your questions to fit your story in that way. If you think you're struggling with something or your CPs are pointing out something you're having an issue with, make sure you add it in a question in your questionnaires to your betas to see how they think about it, because it's always good to get more opinions and more help. Some of these I'm having to tailor a little bit because they are a little spoilery. This far in the story, what are your general thoughts on Miera? Do you find her relatable? Do you find Miera's actions, reactions realistic given the current situation? Are Miera's motives and goals clear and believable? Are Miera's internal and external conflicts clear and believable? What are your general thoughts on each of the following side characters? And then I list 4 or 5 of the main important side characters. What are your general thoughts on each of the following relationships? Who are your favorite characters so far? Does any part of the story drag? Are there parts you wanted to skip? If so, where? What are your general thoughts on the Iceni world, meaning the setting and culture? Is there anything world related that was done well or you think needs further fleshed out? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy these chapters, 10 being the most enjoyable? On a scale of 1 to 10, how eager are you to read the next chapters? And then this is probably one of my favorite questions to ask betas because it really helps you gauge how well you're foreshadowing, and that is, do you have any predictions about the plots or characters? Don't skip out on this one, especially if you have a mystery subplot or a good twist coming up. Make sure you ask this so you can see where your readers are in their headspace and if they're guessing or not guessing things that they should or shouldn't be. And the final questionnaire that I send out is when the reader is completely done with the book. And this is where we get into a lot more spoilery discussions, but I think it is probably the most crucial questionnaire out of all of them because this is an overview of your entire story. What were your initial thoughts after finishing the book? Did you find the ending satisfying? Did you find Miera's character arc satisfying? What are your final thoughts on the following characters? And then list the characters. What are your final thoughts on the following relationships? List your relationships. Who is your favorite character? Then I have a couple spoilery questions that I'm not going to share because they do deal with the big twist in my book, but you can basically ask your betas if they found the twist well explained and if they found the twist believable, if they had a good enough understanding of what was going on for it to be grounded. 2 other really important questions that I like are, what plot twists or reveals did you guess, and what plot twists and reveals surprised you? I ask again if there's any parts of the plot that dragged or you wanted to skip. And then the last 6 questions are really about the beta reader's general thoughts of the entire book as a whole. So in your opinion, what is the novel's greatest strength? In your opinion, what is the novel's greatest weakness? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you enjoy the novel, 10 being most enjoyable? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to pick up the sequel? 10 being the most likely. What predictions could you make for book 2? And possibly one of the most important questions that you can ask once a beta reader finishes your book is how close to query ready do you think this novel is? So those are all of the questions that I ask my betas. I really like the responses I get from this because they are very detailed and nitpicky and specific, because I have tailored my questions anyway, that those are the only kind of responses my betas can give me. Basically, just know the summary of this entire part of the video is vagueness will kill your beta reading experience. If you have a question, make it as specific as possible and do not let your betas get away with one-word answers. Quickly, just some general timeline things that I think I need to talk about is that everyone is going to read your book and answer your questions at different paces. I had one beta that finished my entire book and all of the questions within 3 weeks, and I had a beta that finished all of the questions in the book in 3 months. Everyone's going to be different. You kind of have to prepare yourself for that and prepare the rest of your timeline, your plans for querying, your book goals around the fact that it's going to take some people longer than others to finish your book. They are doing this for free, so you can't be too mad at them for taking a long time. There is a chance that not all of your betas are going to finish your book. I actually had 3 drop out. I had 11 total, 3 dropped out. 1 got halfway through and then finished much later. Now, once all of your betas have finished your book, if you've used the Google spreadsheets, then you have this wonderful ability to compare all of the answers that all of your betas give you in one document, and it's absolutely wonderful for organizing your next revision round. And then from there on, you just revise. But basically, that is my beta reading process and what worked really well for me with my YA fantasy. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below and I will try to answer the best I can. Remember to check out Jessica's video on the Google Sheets and the Google Docs and how to put together a beta questionnaire. It's amazing. It changed my life. I hope all of your writing projects are going well, or if you're part of my reader fam, you're reading some really good books. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!